In this video, we will review history and the transformation of America through industrialization, an economic revolution. Following the Civil War, the United States underwent a profound economic transformation that would establish it as a global industrial power. Traditional industries like textiles and iron manufacturing expanded dramatically, while entirely new sectors emerged. The petroleum industry blossomed after the first commercial oil well was drilled in Titusville, Pennsylvania in 1859, with Standard Oil, founded by John D. Rockefeller in 1870, eventually controlling 90% of the nation's oil refining. The steel industry revolutionized American manufacturing capabilities after Andrew Carnegie implemented the Bessemer process in his Pittsburgh mills, dramatically reducing production costs. By 1900, Carnegie Steel produced more steel than all of Great Britain. The electrical power industry, pioneered by Thomas Edison and George Westinghouse, transformed both manufacturing and daily life as electric lighting replaced gas lamps in urban areas. The expansion of railroads was perhaps the most visible symbol of America's industrial transformation. Railroad track mileage grew from approximately 30,000 miles in 1860 to over 190,000 miles by 1900. The completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869 physically united the nation and accelerated Western settlement. Railroad companies became America's first large-scale corporations, requiring massive capital investments and creating complex managerial hierarchies. This transportation revolution fundamentally altered the American economy by creating truly national markets. Goods manufactured in Eastern factories could now reach Western consumers, while agricultural products from the Midwest and West efficiently reached Eastern markets and ports for export. Industrialization reshaped American society by creating distinct new social classes. At the top, industrial titans like Carnegie, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, and Cornelius Vanderbilt amassed unprecedented personal fortunes. Their lavish lifestyles during what Mark Twain called the Gilded Age displayed extreme wealth concentration. A new middle class of managers, professionals, and small business owners expanded significantly, benefiting from industrial growth while not sharing in the extreme wealth of the industrial elite. This middle class embraced new consumer goods, education opportunities, and suburban housing developments accessible via streetcar networks. The working class expanded dramatically, composed increasingly of immigrants and rural migrants. Between 1870 and 1920, over 25 million immigrants arrived in America, primarily from Southern and Eastern Europe after 1890. Millions more Americans migrated from rural areas to industrial centers seeking employment. Labor conditions and organization. Industrial workplaces were frequently dangerous, with minimal safety regulations. The average industrial worker in the 1880s earned less than $500 annually, working 10-hour days, 6 days weekly. Industrial accidents were common, with an estimated 35,000 workers killed and 500,000 injured annually by the early 1900s. These conditions fueled labor organization efforts. The Knights of Labor, founded in 1869, advocated for an 8-hour workday and the abolition of child labor. The American Federation of Labor, established in 1886 under Samuel Gompers, focused on practical improvements for skilled workers. Labor conflicts often turned violent, as in the 1877 Great Railroad Strike, the 1886 Haymarket Affair, and the 1892 Homestead Strike. Agricultural challenges. American farmers increased production dramatically through mechanization, with innovations like the steel plow, mechanical reaper, and later the combine harvester. However, this productivity growth, combined with new global competition, led to falling agricultural prices. Wheat prices declined from $1.45 per bushel in 1866 to just 49 cents by 1894. Farmers faced additional challenges from railroad monopolies charging high shipping rates, high-interest loans, and the deflationary monetary policies that disadvantaged debtors. These conditions spawned protest movements like the Grange, the Farmers' Alliances, and eventually the Populist Party in the 1890s. Technological transformation of daily life. By 1900, technological innovations had transformed everyday existence for many Americans. Urban homes gradually gained access to running water, indoor plumbing, and electrical lighting. Communication technologies like the telegraph and telephone connected distant locations. Entertainment options expanded through phonographs and early motion pictures. Transportation evolved from horse-drawn vehicles to electric streetcars in cities and eventually automobiles. The Wright brothers' successful flight in 1903 pointed toward future air transportation possibilities. Urban growth and challenges. America's urban population increased from nearly 20% in 1860 to almost 40% by 1900. Cities like New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia expanded dramatically, with Chicago growing from 109,000 residents in 1860 to over 1.6 million by 1900. This rapid urbanization created significant challenges, including housing shortages, sanitation problems, and public health crises. Urban reformers like Jane Addams established settlement houses to assist immigrants, while municipal governments gradually expanded services like water treatment, sewage systems, and public health departments. The dawn of corporate capitalism. This era witnessed the emergence of modern corporate capitalism, characterized by large-scale enterprises requiring massive capital investments. New corporate forms and financial instruments facilitated business consolidation. Mergers and trusts created unprecedented industrial concentration, prompting eventual antitrust legislation like the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. The transformation of America from an agricultural republic to an industrial powerhouse fundamentally altered the nation's economy, society, politics, and global position. By the early 20th century, the United States had emerged as the world's leading industrial nation, producing more than a third of global manufactured goods. The Railroad Revolution and Western expansion. Completing the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869, followed by an extensive network of rail lines across the West, fundamentally transformed the American frontier. This transportation revolution reduced travel time from New York to San Francisco from months to less than a week, catalyzing unprecedented migration and economic development. By 1890, over 170,000 miles of track crossed the nation, with much of the new construction in the West. This rail network enabled the efficient transport of raw materials eastward and manufactured goods westward, integrating the West into the national market economy. Railroad companies became powerful economic and political forces, receiving approximately 175 million acres of public land from the federal government as construction incentives, which they then sold to settlers at substantial profits. The industrial transformation of American labor in the late 19th century, the Mechanization Revolution. The period from 1870 to 1900 marked a profound transformation in American labor, characterized by unprecedented mechanization and industrial expansion. While the cotton gin had revolutionized textile production decades earlier, the post-Civil War era witnessed mechanization spreading across virtually all manufacturing sectors. By 1900, the United States had surpassed Great Britain as the world's leading industrial power, producing nearly a third of global manufactured goods. The mechanization that began in British textile mills spread to countless American industries. By the 1880s, machines were producing an astonishing array of goods. Singer sewing machines could produce up to 3,000 stitches per minute, revolutionizing clothing production. The Goodyear welt machine enabled production of 700 pairs of shoes daily compared to the 5 pairs a skilled cobbler could make. Carnegie's steel mills utilized Bessemer converters that reduced steel production time from 2 weeks to 15 minutes, and automated glass-blowing machines increased bottle production 50-fold. The rise of industrial giants. This period witnessed the emergence of industrial behemoths that transformed the economic landscape. Standard Oil, founded by John D. Rockefeller in 1870, controlled 90% of American oil refining by 1880 through innovative integration techniques and ruthless business practices. Carnegie Steel, established by Andrew Carnegie in 1872, employed over 20,000 workers by 1900 and produced more steel than all of Great Britain. Westinghouse Electric, founded in 1886, pioneered alternating current systems that revolutionized electrical distribution, while General Electric, formed in 1892 through the merger of Edison General Electric and Thomson Houston Electric, became a dominant force in electrical manufacturing. The meatpacking industry was transformed by Gustavus Swift's innovative refrigerated rail cars and assembly line production methods, with Chicago's Union stockyards processing millions of animals annually. Tobacco processing was revolutionized by James Bonsack's cigarette-making machine, which produced 120,000 cigarettes daily, enabling American Tobacco Company to control 90% of the cigarette market by 1890. The changing nature of work. Mechanization fundamentally altered work experiences for millions of Americans. The traditional craft system, with its emphasis on comprehensive skills and worker autonomy, gave way to the factory system characterized by division of labor, repetitive tasks, and managerial control. Frederick Winslow Taylor's scientific management principles, introduced in the 1880s, further intensified labor through time-motion studies and standardized work processes. The physical environment of work changed dramatically as small workshops were replaced by massive factories. Working conditions were often hazardous. Temperatures in steel mills could exceed 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Textile mills were filled with cotton dust, causing widespread respiratory diseases, and meatpacking plants were notoriously dangerous, with worker injury rates approaching 50% annually by 1900. Work hours remained extraordinarily long, with 10 to 12-hour days and 6-day work weeks standard across most industries. The pace of work accelerated constantly as employers sought maximum machine utilization. Factory discipline became increasingly rigid, with elaborate systems of fines, penalties, and dismissals enforcing punctuality and continuous production. Workers in many factories were forbidden to talk, sing, or even leave their workstations without permission. The industrial workforce underwent demographic transformation during this period. Women entered factory work in unprecedented numbers, comprising over 20% of manufacturing workers by 1900, though typically concentrated in lower-paying textile, garment, food processing, and electrical equipment industries. Children remained a significant component of the industrial workforce, with over 1.7 million children under 16 employed in factories, mines, and mills by 1900. Immigration provided much of the expanding industrial workforce, with over 20 million newcomers arriving between 1870 and 1920. Early industrial workers were predominantly from Northern and Western Europe, but by the 1890s the majority came from Southern and Eastern Europe. These new immigrants typically occupied the lowest industrial positions, with limited English skills and unfamiliarity with industrial work making them vulnerable to exploitation. African Americans remained largely excluded from industrial employment until labor shortages during World War I, though some gained footholds in areas like steel production, meatpacking, and mining. Internal migration from rural areas to industrial centers accelerated throughout this period, with millions of Americans leaving agricultural work for factory employment. The harsh realities of industrial work catalyzed labor organization efforts, though these faced formidable obstacles. The Knights of Labor, founded in 1869, reached approximately 700,000 members by 1886, advocating for an 8-hour workday, abolition of child labor, and worker cooperatives. Its inclusivity across skill levels, genders, and races represented a radical departure from earlier craft-based organizations. The American Federation of Labor, established in 1886 under Samuel Gomper's leadership, focused on organizing skilled workers in specific trades, seeking practical improvements through collective bargaining rather than broad social transformation. By 1900, it represented approximately 500,000 workers in affiliated craft unions. This era witnessed unprecedented labor conflict. The Great Railroad Strike of 1877 spread across multiple states, resulting in over 100 deaths and millions in property damage before being suppressed by federal troops. The Pullman Strike of 1894 involved 250,000 workers across 27 states before being broken by federal injunctions and military intervention. Technological impact on specific industries. The textile industry, America's first mechanized sector, saw continued technological advancement, with power looms increasing productivity tenfold between 1860 and 1900. The New England textile centers gradually lost ground to southern mills, utilizing cheaper labor and proximity to cotton sources. By 1900, over 400,000 workers, predominantly women and children, worked in American textile factories under notoriously difficult conditions. The steel industry exemplified industrial transformation through technology. The Bessemer process, open hearth furnaces, and continuous rolling mills revolutionized production methods, while electricity enabled more efficient operations. Steel production increased from 380,000 tons in 1870 to over 11 million tons by 1900, fueling railroad expansion, construction, and manufacturing growth. Meatpacking demonstrated how mechanization transformed even traditional industries. The disassembly line, developed in Chicago's Union stockyards, subdivided animal processing into minutely specialized tasks performed at unprecedented speeds. By 1900, Chicago's meatpacking workforce exceeded 25,000, processing millions of animals annually in a system that inspired Henry Ford's later automobile assembly techniques. Mining experienced a technological revolution through steam-powered drills, dynamite, improved ventilation systems, and mechanical coal cutters, dramatically increasing output while paradoxically often worsening working conditions. Coal production increased from 33 million tons in 1870 to over 250 million by 1900, fueling industrial expansion but at the cost of thousands of miners' deaths annually. Social and economic consequences. Mechanization dramatically increased productivity and output while reducing consumer prices. The average industrial worker in 1900 could purchase significantly more goods than their 1870 counterpart, even as wages remained relatively stagnant. This production revolution helped create an emerging consumer society, with department stores, mail-order catalogs, and nationally advertised brand names transforming purchasing patterns. The long-term legacy of this industrial transformation remains complex and contested. While mechanization ultimately raised living standards and created new economic opportunities, it also fundamentally altered work experiences, often replacing skilled, autonomous labor with repetitive, closely supervised tasks. This period's social and economic dislocations shaped American politics, culture, and society for generations to come, establishing patterns of labor relations that would persist well into the 20th century. If you like this type of video, subscribe, share, and like. Thank you for watching. Reference. Please read the description for details. You will find websites with pictures that I couldn't show here due to copyright, but they are amazing pictures.